Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer of the Government and Public Services Practice with Deloitte. And today I have the pleasure to have with me here Ravi Krishnan, Chief Data Officer for the state of North Dakota. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you, Adita. Glad to be here.
So Ravi, in the last few years, we've seen that the role of the CDO has rapidly evolved across the 50 states in the country. And even though it's starting to spread across the 50 states, there are still some differences in the roles and the responsibilities of each state's CDO, not just in terms of roles and responsibilities, but also in terms of where the position is situated in the organization. So I'm curious if you want to start off our discussion by telling the audience a little bit more about where your CDO position is located in the organization, and then a little bit about your roles and responsibilities.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I know just a few years ago, there were probably just a handful of state CDOs. So you're spot on that this role has grown. And I believe at last count, close to 30 different states have their own CDOs or are in the process of having their own CDO. What interested me very much about North Dakota specifically was, this role, does reside, like a traditional, private sector enterprise. It reports into the CIO. So it's, got direct visibility to the CIO, who is a cabinet member in Governor Burgum's cabinet, Sean Riley, right? So Sean Riley is a CIO, and he has done a great job of creating verticals that handle specific tasks of work. So in that sense, we've had an opportunity to kind of dive deep into this particular vertical. And the CDO role is interesting to me on a couple of different levels, at least as it relates to North Dakota. One is, typical CDO in the private sector will be interested in pure data management, right? They're interested in things like the Dimbock wheel, right? Tell me the 8 different types of things that we do within data management, ranging from metadata to data quality to data modeling and architecture. So we do all of that stuff, and we want to continue to grow. But more importantly, the CDO role within North Dakota has an aspect of application development included. So I thought that was a very interesting mix of technologies and tools. So my staff, we have close to 125 people. So for a state like North Dakota to make that kind of an investment in application development, data management, governance, and implementation, that's huge kudos to our governor, who is himself a former tech CEO, and to our CIO for having that vision to kind of lay this out for us ahead of time. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the organization. We are looking very much, we are forward focused. We are looking to the future with analytics and AI leading the path. So we want to migrate from where we are at traditionally with application development and data management to some of the more cool and cutting edge technologies of the future.
That's great, Ravi. And you're right. I think it is really interesting that you also have application development as part of your office's responsibility. I've talked to a few CDOs around the country, and there are not too many that also have that responsibility in their umbrella. So tell me a little bit more about how you feel that is actually enabling you in your role as a CDO, having kind of a little bit more involvement with application development, or has that been more of a challenge or a limitation in delivering your core CDO responsibilities?
I think it's definitely a positive overall. There is a little bit of a learning curve involved when you have a mix of different, departments, different types of work they do. But I always like to think about, data in terms of producers and consumers, right? So we have applications that are, producing data. They're collecting data, producing data, dispersing data through the organization. And then we have a data management function that kind of seamlessly connects to it. Whether we have .NET applications or Java applications, whether it's mobile applications, all of them have to be connected to data warehousing, all kinds of databases on-prem, on the cloud. So there is a lot of areas of synergy. And in fact, one of the advantages of this has been the way that we've rolled out our whole agile transformation. When we do our agile transformation, we have plenty of cross-pollination of ideas across the data, vertical, the data analytics vertical, as well as their application development vertical. And that has helped, move with migration of people and processes, cross-pollination of ideas to encourage fresh thinking and to take us to the next level. So I'd say there's probably more good than bad with this whole, environment.
I like that perspective a lot. And I think I agree. Having a more multidisciplinary team under your office's umbrella definitely has its own benefits. So great to hear that. Ravi, I want to pivot over to another topic that I've heard you talk about, something called the Project Lighthouse, that I've heard you're very passionate about. So could you share with our audience a little bit more about what this project is, and more importantly, your aspirations around it?
Absolutely. So Project Lighthouse, represents an aspiration. It's a little bit of a rallying cry, a call to action for us to get to the promised land, if you will. And in my career, I've had the opportunity of working on, other, private sector engagements where Lighthouse has always represented, hope. There's, there's a lot of positivity and courage that kind of goes along with making transformations. So we are looking to Project Lighthouse to, be that beacon of light for us to guide our path forward. And when I say path forward, it's a future that's driven by data, a future that's in the cloud and hopefully multi-cloud down the line, but also looking to the future to solve tactical business problems. One of the things within government is, we got to be also tactical, while we're thinking about the strategic projects and where we want to be in the future as an enterprise. But we want to make sure that we are solving problems along the way, not just working on, like a 10-year project with customers coming and adopting it. At the end of that time frame, that that concept is not going to fly even in the private sector these days, right? So it's that quick iteration, the quick return to value. I think that's very important for us to articulate. And so as a result of that thinking, we have partnered with two agencies, the Department of Public Instruction, or DPI, Department of Human Services, the DHS. And we have worked with them to create a partnership with North Dakota Information Technology to, obviously sponsor Project Lighthouse, as well as, help form a little bit of a steering committee, if you will, upfront. So we have the chiefs of these agencies involved. The objectives around Project Lighthouse are around enabling good outcomes for the children of North Dakota. And primarily the onus is on the education sector. So we are kind of starting there. How are children doing in school today? What are the trends? What data influences how well they do? And we want to be able to, at some point, also connect it to data across agencies, right? With the early childhood data, do we have nutrition data available? Do we have information that's available through other agencies? There's information about juveniles and corrections and all that. At some point, we want to explore those areas. But in a nutshell, we want to make sure that we are able to connect all of these disparate data sets. And we want to do this very safely, very carefully, right? Because this is highly, highly sensitive data. So we want to make sure that we're first establishing those guardrails, privacy policies, governance policies that go along with this to implement something of this magnitude that will help lawmakers, make good decisions. Where do we need to invest our, money so that children can have better outcomes and they can have a better future? Which kids are more likely to stay in the state and go to college? Who's likely to migrate out of the state? What's the likelihood of a student that could land in prison? Right? There's data out there, researches that have been done that are able to predict accurately, even when a kid is 5 years old, depending on family background, the variables around it, what kind of nutrition this child has access to. What is the likelihood this child would land up in the system versus living a fulfilled and a whole life, right? So I think those are remediations that we can take early on if we have access to the data. And our goal is to make our elected representatives and superintendents and senators and other folks having access to this kind of data for decision making and support. So that is, in a nutshell, what Project Lighthouse is. It's all about kids and ensuring their future.
on that high note, Ravi, wanting to grow smarter together and moving towards a positive future, I want to thank you for joining me today and for sharing all your perspectives with me and the audience, including sharing a secret, which is the audience is going to love hearing about. As for the audience, please continue to visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Ravi, again, thank you for your time and sharing your perspectives today.
Thank you, Adita. It was a pleasure talking to you today. I appreciate your time as well.